The Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, is an ambitious trade agreement between the United States and 11 other countries. Once approved, it will open new markets to trade and investment for all participants. But the TPP also includes new rules in several important areas where critics have voiced concerns. For example, some say the TPP does not adequately protect the rights of workers to organize and work under decent conditions. In fact, the TPP includes more protections of labor rights than any previous free trade agreements signed by the United States. These protections would discourage the worst forms of worker abuses, and they ought to increase public support for the TPP. Like recent U.S. agreements, the TPP commits its members to uphold core rights and principles of the International Labor Organization as part of their domestic laws and regulations. These include freedom of association and the right to collective bargaining, elimination of forced and child labor, and elimination of employment discrimination, for example, based on gender, race, religion, or other grounds. In addition, TPP members also agree to maintain acceptable conditions of work in 3 areas: minimum wages, limits on hours of work, and occupational safety and health regulations. The conditions may vary depending on a country's level of development, however. The TPP also calls for new constraints on trade in goods made by forced labor. The language could have been stronger, but it is a step in the right direction. As a result of the TPP, Malaysia, Mexico, Peru, and Vietnam could face increased scrutiny of their use of forced labor in the making of certain traded goods. TPP members also commit not to lower labor standards in special trade or export processing zones. Such zones cover nearly 70 million workers worldwide. They often involve labor-intensive assembly production, and their practices have drawn scrutiny from labor organizations. Extra protection for migrant labor is not addressed by the TPP, unfortunately. Such provisions could have helped constrain forced labor and other abusive recruiting practices directed at foreign workers in TPP countries. In addition to the TPP labor chapter, a major innovation of the TPP is the extra guidance provided for countries that have the biggest gap with international labor standards. To that end, the United States negotiated labor plans with Brunei, Malaysia, and Vietnam, which call for specific reforms that will help implement TPP labor terms. For many of these countries, the TPP marks the first recognized commitment to such extensive reforms. For example, Vietnam will be required to allow the independent formation and affiliation of unions. The 3 labor plans must be implemented before the TPP enters into force, with one exception related to Vietnam. And, in another departure from past practice, these plans will be subject to TPP dispute settlement procedures. Is enforcement of all these changes guaranteed? Not always, but the TPP is a step forward toward recognizing the rights of workers in these countries, and its provisions include various mechanisms to monitor implementation. Vietnam's plan in particular is subject to extra independent oversight by the ILO and non-government labor experts. In sum, the TPP will not solve all labor challenges within TPP countries, but it has the potential of adding pressure to upgrade standards and enforce binding TPP commitments. Once approved, the TPP can pave the way for future agreements to build on the progress it has achieved.